Hi everyone, N.A.T here, and today I wanted to show you a trick I use to get my kicks right, or at least as good as I can, when I reference them to my reference kicks. So let's look at this kick that I'm working on in this project. Okay, it's a kick I made with N.A.T, and then I kind of played around with some other effects. I kind of created different transient with effects, as you can see, using erosion, and faded in the transient. But let's look at the source sound, which is this one. As you can see, I used two N.A.T, one for the transient here, and one for the low part of the kick. So this trick revolves around using this free plugin, which is a pay what you want kind of, which is free or pay what you want, and it's called Visu. AU5 talked about it in one of his videos. It's a spectrum analyzer, I guess, spectrogram. I don't know the right word for this, but here's how I use it to kind of get the kicks right. So what I actually do when I create, when I do sound design and create my sounds, is I use some reference sound. In this example, in here, for example, I'm using a kick from Vengeance, you know, professional sounding kick, and it sounds like this. Okay, and so there are many cool things that are useful that we can get from using this tool. So first of all, sometimes it's easy when you play around with your kick with your kick drum to kind of play around with the time of the pitch envelope. Let me actually duplicate it, the low part, so I can mess around with it. Okay, so for example, you're messing around with your pitch envelope, and you're like, where should I put it? You know, because for example, I might like it like this, very like ooh, you know. But then you create your kick, then you use it in a track, and you're like, it doesn't sound right. Well, actually, if we look at our reference kick in Visu, we can kind of see what's really useful about the spectrum analyzer thing is that we can kind of see how fast or slow the pitch envelope is, okay? For example, and we can also see where it starts to decay from, you know? It looks like it starts to decay from here, from 190 hertz, and then it goes down like this. And now let's look at how our kick looks. And as you can see, it's way too slow. You know, you see, it takes a lot of time to decay. And so, you know, we can use this method to reference and kind of go like, okay, it should actually be faster, so let's do this. Let's try to match it. Let me disengage the freeze, sorry. So let's try to match it again. Okay, and now as you can see, it kind of decays as fast as our reference kick. So the thing with pitch envelope is if you go too slow like this, it would sound like a zap, okay? And if you go too fast, it will sound like it lacks punch. And you can also see how fast it is here in the spectrum thing. And you might think this is good. But if you hear that it lacks punch. And so by matching it maybe a little more, and you find that sweet spot. Okay? Where your kicks sound very good. Also, another very useful thing is, as I said, we can see where the pitch envelope starts from. So it starts from here, which means that in our kick drum, if we go too high here, for example, let me disable this so I can mess around with this one instead. You can see now that my kick is starting to decay from here, which is way too high in this case, you know? And that's why my kick starts to sound like a laser, you know? Psst, psst. And so I can adjust it, go lower, like from here, and we start to be in that sweet spot where the kick starts to sound really, really good. Another very useful thing, in my opinion, is this, that with Visu, we can also see how loud the transient is compared to the low, the tail of the kick, the low end. So as you can see, we can see not only how loud this higher part of the kick is, but also how persistent it is, how long it takes to decay. And now in our kick, we can see that, for example, we can see that our transient is much shorter, you know. This was our reference kick, and this is our kick. And we can see that the volume of the transient is kind of good, but this one is, this transient is a little longer compared to mine, and so that's why it has more presence. And also you can see there are kind of more things decaying here in this mid region, okay, of the reference kick compared to my kick, okay. So we can kind of add them with some either distortion or reverb. All right, so now if I, for example, remove the transient, we will see this immediately. We can see now, compared to the reference kick, that the kick is much louder here in the transient part. Okay, so that was one thing I forgot to say in my video about how I make kick drums. And also what I like to do is, when I'm making kick drums and I make variations, I kind of resample them. So let's do that. I set my project to 1/4 note of quantization and just record a kick. Okay, and now I can copy it and paste it here. All right, let me consolidate it so we can see it at full volume. And also let's turn the volume down. Okay, and now, as I said, I can also drag and drop that reference kick here, and in the same way we can reference kind of the pitch envelope if it's right or wrong. Of course, there's no right or wrong, but if you're doing some kind of ridiculous stuff, like for example, let's mess again with the low part of the kick. and make it kind of weird. Let's try to compare this, for example. Okay, let me put it here, consolidate it so we can see it at full volume. And now, well, I guess it isn't bad, as bad as I thought. No, it still looks good. What I wanted to show you is a kick that really looks wrong. Second. Let's do another one, kind of stranger. So you might think that this sounds good, right? So let's resample this. Okay. Let's put it here, consolidate it, give it the right color, see it at full volume. And now you can see that the density here is too much compared to our reference kick. And that's why it sounds so boxy, you know, because it's not decaying fast enough to that nice sub here. Let's reference. And the reference kick. This one sounds much better. And this one sounds very good as well. I like this one a lot, actually. I will be exporting it and using it. Now the transient isn't as good as the reference kick as well. I need to work on that as well. But yeah, that was what I wanted to share with you. I hope this was useful, and see you in the next video.